Welcome to the Richard Lloyd USA YouTube channel. I'm Richard Lloyd. Today I'm going to be doing an automotive video on my Santa Fe. This is a 2003, but this video will cover the model numbers between 2001 and 2006 as they all share the same chassis. I'm going to be painting the rear calipers with the Rust-Oleum caliper paint. I did the front ones in another video and they turned out really nice, and I figured I'd be matching up the rear color with the front by painting them red as well. So I'll be doing that. I'll put a link for all the stuff I use in this video, the paint, tools, supplies, in the video description below. Those are affiliate links, and you'll be doing me a great favor if you use those as opposed to going directly to eBay and Amazon to buy this stuff, as I get a small commission every time you buy through on those links. Bonus for you is that it doesn't cost any more for you to do that than going directly to Amazon or eBay. Number one. Number two, you get the same supplies and tools that I use from the same sellers that I bought them from. That way you know you're getting the same stuff that I'm using. So that's a plus for you as well. So do me a favor, use the links in the video description. Also, if you like my channel, subscribe to it. You can subscribe to it by clicking the button on the bottom corner anytime during this video. As well, at the end you'll see a picture of me. If you click on that, you'll be subscribed to my channel. As part of the process of subscribing, you'll get a bell icon. If you click on the bell icon, you'll be notified every time I put up a new video, and then you can watch it at your own leisure. As well, give me a big thumbs up. That helps my channel, it helps my video, and I greatly appreciate it. As well, share it, and you know, if you've got a comment, a suggestion, or a question, put it in the comments section below this video. I do appreciate your input, and I read those comments and suggestions and questions on a regular basis and respond accordingly. Also, if you got a video suggestion, put it in the comment section as well. I have done several videos from suggested comments on the comment section below videos. So yeah, I appreciate that as well. So let's paint those calipers and make them look nice. Something that I think is very essential for this service is the Permatex silicone ceramic extreme brake parts lubricant. This stuff is awesome. Really good stuff. Great for the sliders, for lubricating the brake sliders, as well as the brake pads and the shims as well. The clips on everything on the brakes you can use this on, and this stuff is really awesome. High temperature grease, 3000 degree max Fahrenheit, amazing. So again, all the stuff in the video description below. Strongly recommend getting this stuff. I know it's not cheap, but it's well worth every penny, and you get a lot for the price. So here are all the things I used in this video. I got a 7-piece grinder brush kit from Harbor Freight. A really good deal. If I can find the item number, I think it's on there. I'll put it in the video description as well, if it's a link if I can get it. A 1/4-inch socket set here. I only used the 10mm on that, but that's what I used there. A 3/8-inch socket set, which I use most of to do this service. I've got a 1/4-inch torque wrench. Definitely need all these torque wrenches, except maybe for the 1/2-inch, but I'll get to that. The 1/4-inch torque wrench is for the bleeder nipple. The 10mm for the bleeder nipple. You could use the wrench, the 10mm wrench, 12mm wrench and socket, 14mm wrench and socket, and a 17mm wrench and socket, as well as various socket drivers. I've got 2 here of different lengths. Probably only need 1 of those. And there's the 3/8-inch torque wrench. Again, don't do brake work without having a torque wrench to do the proper torque settings for all the bolts involved. This is not something you want to take a guess at. Your brakes are a safety feature of your car. Make sure you torque all the bolts down to the proper specs, and I'll put those in the video description for you as well. 21mm impact sockets. I got 2 of them there, a short one and a long one, and that's what I use the 1/2-inch torque wrench for, and that's on the lug nuts for the wheel, as well as a breaker bar to get them off. Protective equipment, gotta have it. A very good set of safety glasses, N95 respirator mask for me, that's what I used. Work gloves for sure, and nitrile 8mm gloves for handling the brake fluid parts. And also I used just a hand wire brush. You could probably use that to get all the corrosion off the caliper, but in my case that would have taken weeks because there was so much on it. DOT number 3 brake fluid. You're going to need to bleed the brakes if you follow my instructions on this video. I also have a video on how to bleed the brakes, so you can follow that as well. I will link that in a card and in the video description. There's the star of the show, the Rust-Oleum caliper paint that I used to spray paint the calipers after I got them all clean. Some brake cleaner, an angle grinder, again got that one from Harbor Freight for like $14, and I used it to grind all the rust off. Also I used the drill with these various heads here to get into the deeper crevices. It worked really well. The Harbor Freight speed pump or jack here. Actually, this one here has been, I did a video on it, and it is now featured on the Harbor Freight site, so thank you very much, Harbor Freight, for that. This is the exact same jack that you will see my video of when you go to Harbor Freight to look up this jack. So cool. I also used an impact driver, not necessary. This is optional. It just makes it quicker to get the bolts off. And I only use it to get the bolts off, and then maybe after starting the bolts, just to quickly snug them down. But I don't use them to torque anything down because it's really powerful, and most likely it's going to ruin your nuts or your bolts, one of the two. 2 3-ton jack stands used to hold up the vehicle while you're doing the both front calipers. And that's basically all of it. Yeah, oh, and these rubber hoses, I use them to stop the banjo connections from the caliper from leaking. So a couple rubber hoses that would fit there would be useful for you. I'll measure them and put that in the video description as well. Their outside diameter is what matters. Yeah, that's it. And yes, can't stipulate strongly enough, protective equipment. The gloves saved my hands a couple of times. The safety glasses, I mean, stuff was bouncing off of them the whole time I was doing the service. So like little strands of this steel brushes are going to break off and fly into everything. So that's just normal. They just break off. That's wear on those brushes. But I would strongly suggest that you wear jeans and a long sleeve denim shirt to do this, because those things will fly off and they will hit you. So definitely wear the protective equipment. Don't think that you can use a grinder with a steel brush safely without it. You can't. So again, really stipulating on that. The C-clamp I use for compressing the calipers, and the painter's tape I used to cover the pistons and the seals on the pistons when I was painting it. One more thing I forgot to include, and that is the wheel chocks to keep the vehicle from rolling. I just saw them when I was cleaning up, so I just adding this to the pieces needed to do this service. Wheel chocks for sure, safety. First thing we need to do before we get at the brakes to paint them is to loosen the lug nuts. You do this with the wheel on the ground, after which I'll show you how I jack up the car and use the jack stands to securely lift the vehicle. So first, let's loosen those lug nuts. You can use your 13/16 lug wrench like this, or you could do what I'm going to do. I'm going to use a 21 millimeter deep socket on the bolts and a breaker bar. You could also use an impact driver if you wish as well with a 21 or 13/16. So this is the way I like to do it anyway. So let's break them loose. Okay, I got the wheel chocks on it. If you can see on the front wheels, the emergency brake it wouldn't make any difference here because we're lifting the back tires anyway. It is in park, so it should be safe. Okay, they're all loose. I like to just snug them down a little bit, slightly. And we're ready to jack it up. And I'll show you how I jack this up, how to lift the rear end, and how to put the jack stands on this thing so you can safely work on it. Okay, I'm coming in from the rear of the car, and this is the swing arm, suspension swing arm for the rear wheel. Both sides have the same feature, and you can see I don't know if you can see it, but the coil is here, and it rests on a flat piece on the bottom of the swing arm. So that's what I'm going to jack up on. Now, I'm using a piece of 2x4 on top of my jack to give me an extra, 2 inches of height when I fully extend the jack, because we're compressing the suspension to actually lift the vehicle. So once it's on the jack stand and you release the jack, the suspension will go back down, and you'll lose some of your height. So just to make sure that I have enough height to lift it up high enough and to get the wheel off, I'm using the extra block of wood. So let's jack it up from that point, and I'm doing the same on both sides. You can see it's going pretty high, but like I said, we're going to lose some of that height when we release it, and you'll see that. And I'll show you where I place the jack stand after I lower it. I think that's more than enough. Plenty high. I probably didn't need the block of wood. All right, so I like to really slowly lower it down onto the pinch points with the jack stands. I don't want to damage anything. So let's go slowly. And you can see how much that wheel lowers down. Because, like I said, we're compressing the spring. But that was high enough to keep the wheel off the ground, and that's all we need. And I'll do the same on the other side and jack both sides up the same way from the same place. All right, the pinch points on the Santa Fe are here and here. They're about, I don't know, 3-4 inches away from the edge of the wheel well. I can't see them really well on my vehicle because I have these, I don't know, side steps that allow me to step in and out off the car easily. It's a great feature, but it conceals the pinch points, which are right here, and the wheel well is about the same distance apart from there. So you can see where the other jack is as well on the other side. I can't show you the jack on the other side because the rubber protector on the top of the jack conceals all the points. So I'll do the same on this side, jack it up and put the jack on that pinch point. Okay, we got the vehicle secure on the jack stands. Now we can remove the wheel. I'm just going to use my impact driver. This is, again, with my 21 millimeter deep socket. Let's take it off and then continue from there. All right, now we got access to the calipers and the disc brakes, so we can take them off and grind them down and paint them. All right, now you can see the caliper. This kind of oil stain here, or stain that you see here, that's from the last time I bled them, which was a couple of days ago. So again, it doesn't matter. You can see the corrosion on them. I'm going to wear that all off with the wire brush process. But first thing we got to do is take off the flex line, which is right here. That's a 12 millimeter bolt, so let me zoom in on that. There, you can see it. Flex line is right here. This 12 millimeter bolt. I'm going to take it off. I'm going to use my a piece of hose inside the actual banjo connection, and that'll stop the brake fluid from leaking out. I do have a drip pan underneath, or a catch pan, and let's just take it off. It's a 12 millimeter. Let's get on it whatever way you can. There we go, that works. And there are copper washers on the actual bolt that will may or may not stay with the bolt, and so make sure that you don't lose those. There we go. Got it loose. I can, pretty tight spot, but using this type of ratchet, as you can see, it's a low profile ratchet. I really like this. Again, links for all this stuff in the video description below. But it worked enough to loosen it up, so I can take it off with my fingers now. You can see the copper, yeah, there's a copper washer on the back of the bolt, and there's one on between the caliper and the banjo joint as well, so watch for that. There's the bolt off, and you can see the brake fluid beginning to pour out, which is predictable. Copper washer not on that side, so it must be stuck to the caliper, so watch for that. Don't lose it. You need it. You need to put it back in afterwards. So I'm stuffing the rubber hose inside, number one, to keep all the fluid from leaking out, as you can see all the way through. Now it's not leaking anymore, and to keep air from going into the system, which has already happened. But yeah, get yourself some hose and do that with it, or something in getting in. This works really well for me though. So just put it out of the way. So we've got the banjo connector off, the flex line off, and what I want to do next is compress the pistons on this caliper so they're all fully retracted, so that when I'm doing the grinding, I don't actually grind the pistons or the seals. Everything can be taped off and not be damaged. So I've got the caliper, my C-clamp on the back of the caliper here, and on the mounting bracket for the caliper on the front, and I'm just going to compress it, and it should go easy. It shouldn't be hard. You could probably do it by hand if it's free enough, but I'm just going to do it with this because it's the easiest. So you can see it moving. It's fairly easy. I probably could have done it by hand, but again, and when you're compressing it, the fluid's that's inside the pistons or inside the cylinders for the pistons will drain out onto the drain pan. So keep the drain pan underneath. And once you get there, it'll get pretty stiff, and you'll know. I think I'm there. Yep. So now they're compressed, and you can see that in the distance here when they're compressing. So both sides are compressed, and I like to do that with the caliper pins in because it keeps it nice and even, and compresses both pistons exactly the same when you do that. So now we take the C-clamp off, and now, oh, I just heard there's the other copper washer that I was talking about on the banjo clamp. So this is on the inside. Put it on with the bolt right here. So here's the bolt, and you can see the bolt has one on the inside already. On the outside one, this is the inside one. So I said keep an eye on that. So I'm just going to hand tighten that back into the caliper, and we're going to take off the top and bottom slider bolts or caliper bolts there, and those are 14s. So we'll take those off next. Okay, there we go. And they should be on fairly stiff, but again, ratchet, 14 millimeter, off they go. There we go. And once they're loose, you should be able to turn them by hand. If not, just keep ratcheting them off. Hands are a little slippery from the brake fluid, so again, use the gloves. Protection always. The brake fluid, you don't want to get it on anything really. Paint especially. Your hands as well, especially. So there's the caliper off. I think the piston could probably go a little further back, but regardless, there it is. So we're going to grind that down to nothing. Well, not to nothing, to the bare metal. And next we're going to take off these pads. So the pads just slide off. Well, they should just slide off. Yep, there we go. Same with the back one. I'm going to slide those off, and then we're going to take these clips off. Some of these camera angles are a little harder to get than others, so excuse me if I'm in the way or if I make the tripod shake a little bit. But yeah, we've got the caliper off now. We take the pads off next. These are on mine are a little stiff, so I'm going to use the screwdriver to wedge them out, and I'm going to push on the metal, not on the pads, and move the inside one out that way, and the outside one, of course, this way. So let's do that. There we go on the back one, and watch these parts. They can be sharp. These are the clips, the retaining clips. Again on the back. There we go. There we go. So that's it for the pads. Next we're going to take the two 14 millimeter bolts that hold the caliper bracket off. So let's get on with that. So we got two 14 millimeters that got to come off to take the bracket off, the caliper mounting bracket off, and they're back here. Hopefully you can see them. Some of these shots are really hard to get the angle on, so Let's just loosen them up and take them off. Careful here with this wire and this sensor. It's the ABS sensor. Take the bottom off, one off too, down here. Again, this is where the low profile with the swivel head is really, really nice. Okay, bottom one off. There it is. I'm going to see if these are different from the washers on the front were different on the top and on the bottom. So we'll see if this is the same deal here. I did get a schematic of all the brakes as well. I may include that in the video or put the link in the video description. There we go. Caliper mounting bracket off. Take those shims off afterwards. Just pry them off. And then we're going to take the sliders off of there and the rubber seals as well and go at it. Oh, and the bottom and the top bolt are the same on this system, so on the back brakes, so there's no need to be concerned about that. Okay, let's take the components off the caliper bracket. I noticed right away that there's this kind of gray residue here on the sliders, which tells me more than likely, and you can see some of the gray powder there that I scraped off, that somebody used Permatex anti-seize lubricant on those sliders, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's the silver stuff, and you know, great stuff for what it's meant to do, which is anti-seize compound lubricant. It's supposed to stop bolts from seizing, but these aren't bolts. These are sliders, and they're high temperature use. So this stuff shouldn't be used for that, and I'll show you why here in a second. But first, let's take the shims off of this. So these right here, just pry them off like that. I'll probably wire brush them nice and clean too. Again, there's the other one. A little bit of corrosion on it, not much though. And now we'll take these sliders off, and you can see what's going on here. And it's almost like this stuff turns to glue. It's like a pasty, powdery stuff now. It hardly has any lubricant, you know, properties to it at all. It's almost like not a paste, but a powdery, hard, crusty stuff. So don't use the Permatex on these sliders. Somebody did here. I didn't. You can see the stuff that's coming off there. It's no good. I use the Permatex brake parts lubricant, brake parts. So it's safe for rubber. It's high temperature. It goes to 3,000 degrees, extreme temperature. Ceramic, silicone lubricant. This is the stuff to use. So I'm going to clean all those up and use this on it as well, and I'll show you that on the way when we put it back together again. And I'm going to clean the insides of the orifices for the sliders as well inside there, so that they get nice and clean. And I want to also say that the procedure for the this is the passenger side, is exactly the same for the what do you call it, the driver's side. So there's no need to actually you know, show you the other side. It's the exact same procedure. You will have to bleed the brakes, but I do have a video on that, and I'll leave a card at top here, or maybe in the video description below, for you to watch that procedure. So let's take the bottom one off, and just, it's like glue now. This should just slide right off, because if it was lubricated, look how tight that is. It's not like it moves, but just barely. So I'm glad I'm doing this service. And then you can see all this stuff that is flaking off here. It's not really lubricant anymore. It's more like gunk. So yeah, don't use the anti-seize on the sliders. That's why it hardens, and then it stops doing the job it's supposed to do, which is lubricate. I will clean these off with soap and water, the rubber grommets, as well as the sliders. I'll clean them off as well, and they just pop off too. Let me get that. There we go. There we are. And now you can see all the residue, and it's just powder. It's not even lubricant anymore, because the heat, and it's not meant for that purpose. So I'll clean all that off and then lubricate them again, and I'll show you that at the end. Yeah, why not to use anti-seize compound on brake parts? Use the good stuff, the ceramic silicone ceramic extreme brake parts lubricant. It's meant for it, and it's safe on the rubber as well, and all the components of the brake system. And yeah, it costs a bit. This one cost me over $20, but again, you get 8 ounces of it. It's probably good enough to do brakes for, like, you know, half your lifetime. You don't need to use a lot of it. So yeah, good stuff. Get this for the sliders and for everything you need to lubricate on the brakes. So here's all the various tools and supplies that I'm going to be using for wire brushing the corrosion off these calipers. If you watch the first video for my front ones, which I'm probably putting a card for on the top of this video, you'll see how I wire brush them all down. But what you want to avoid here is going anywhere near the rubber seal or the piston with the wire brushes, because that can damage it. So just don't do the surfaces near the piston or the rubber seal. All the rest is fair game. Be careful with that. Absolutely need to wear protective equipment. I'm using full glasses, full safety glasses, work gloves, a mask, N95 mask, ear protection as well. And yeah, if you want to see the rest of the tools, hopefully you guys can see them there. I've got a wire brush, several different drill wire brush heads for the drill. I have various grinder attachment wire brushes, as you can see, and I'm going to be using whatever I require. One thing you need to really be aware of is that these little wires, these little steel wires, will fly off. They will wear off. They will bend off, and they become projectiles. So wear something protective like jeans and a long sleeve thick t-shirt or a thick long sleeve shirt, and definitely the protective equipment. Do not do it without the gloves, the eye protection, full eye protection, the N95 mask, or the ear protection, because like I said, this stuff goes flying everywhere. There's brake dust on the caliper as well. You don't want to breathe that, and you don't want to breathe anything coming off this caliper. So, and it's all going to go into the air, and these little pieces of this the wire brush will go flying off too, so they'll hit you. So make sure that you're wearing full equipment. One more thing I didn't mention is that I'm using a clamping workbench, and yeah, this is probably a safety device as well, because it keeps it from flying off and going flying off and perhaps hitting you or just damaging something else. So it's clamped in, it doesn't go anywhere. If you don't have one of these, make sure you have some way of holding this down, a pair of vice grips or vise or something when you're grinding it, so it doesn't go anywhere when you're putting pressure against it. All right, small correction here. I said that the calipers weren't labeled. They are. You can see here that it says FOR, and here it says FOL. So R for the right, left for the left, obviously, L for the left. And that is, so you know, the left is the passenger side, and the right is the driver's side. That's the way they came off. So left on mine was the passenger side, and right on mine was the driver's side. All right, I got all my pieces hanging here on my makeshift scaffolding on my ladder, but it works. And I've got some, I used some coat hanger wire to hang it up, and I love painting them when they're hanging. It's just the best way to get every surface covered. And I'm going to be wearing my protective equipment, of course, and you can see there on the furthest left caliper that I've got painter's tape on the piston and on the actual seal. So that should make it safe for the paint to go anywhere on that caliper. You should do the same. You don't want paint or getting onto the rubber or the piston itself. So let's get at it. Wear all your protective equipment, your mask, your eye gear, your gloves, so on, and paint it up. All right, that's one fresh layer of paint. I don't know if I stated this in this video yet or not, but this paint takes 7 days to fully cure. So it takes a long time to get dry and stays tacky for at least 2 days. My front caliper stayed tacky for 2 days. So in between coats, what you want to do, I'm going to give it, on the can it says 1 hour, but I'd say 2 hours would be a better number between coats. So what I'll do is I'll leave this alone now for 2 hours. Then I will flip them over and hang them at 180 degrees from where they are right now, so that I can get all the surfaces I didn't get well on the first coat. So I'm going to put at least 2 coats on them, maybe 3, but regardless, leave 2 hours between coats, because otherwise it'll just get all runny on you. So here they are, all the lovely pieces all painted up and ready to be put back into the car. I had to do a little bit of repainting because of the my using brake clean on these orifices to clean out the grease. But hey, I had a little extra paint, so I did repaint them, and they look great. Ready to be mounted on the car. I'll put these brackets and calipers back on, and I will also take the protective painter's tape off the piston and seals and get at it. So let's go. Okay, we're looking at the passenger side rear brake and assembly, and the 2 bolts that hold the caliper mounting bracket will go here and here, and so let's get on and put that on there. So I've got the 2 bolts, they're 14 millimeters, and I'll give you the torque spec on that. The torque spec is 37 to 44 foot-pounds for the 2001 through 2006 Santa Fe. 2007 and beyond, it's 51 foot-pounds. So in between 37 and 44 is 40.5. So I'm going to go with 41 foot-pounds on it. So let's get this bracket on there and yeah, mount it up. So hopefully I'm not too much in the way. There we go. Like so. So it's on the inside. Only fits one way anyway, so you'll know. Hopefully I'm not too much in the shot. Put the bottom bolt in loosely just to hold the bracket there. Same on the top. There we go. Hand tighten it as much as possible. It looks great. Really happy with the result of that paint. I may give it another shot, never know. Here we go. Yeah, again, guys, it does take 7 days for this stuff to cure. So I'm on day 3 here, and it's still a little soft. So I'm going to snug those up here with my 14 millimeter. And then I'm going to hit them with the torque wrench at 41 foot-pounds. Snug. And yeah, definitely clean them with the brake clean prior to painting with the slider orifices. There we go. I'm using the 3/8 ratchet torque wrench because, hey, it's smaller and it fits and it works. So okay, we're there. You can go a little over because 44 is the max and I'm set to 41. So these are brakes. You want them to stay on and you want them to be torqued correctly. So yeah, I wouldn't do any mechanic work without the proper torque specifications and the torque wrench to give me those specs. All right, there's the bracket on. Next, we're going to put the caliper on. Show you what I've got so far with the mounting hardware. I cleaned the pins off nicely, so they're nice and ready to go. The rubber I cleaned with soap and water, dish detergent and water, and scrubbed them up, and they look really good, so they're ready to go. And I'm going to lubricate this with, of course, well, not of course, but the brakes part lubricant from Permatex. This is the high temperature ceramic extreme brake parts lubricant, safe on all rubber and all brake parts. Plus, it's made for brakes, and it goes up. It will continue to work up to 3,000 Fahrenheit. So that's more than your brakes ever should get in temperature. So yeah, I'm going to lubricate these. I'm going to lubricate the sliders, which I also cleaned as well, and I'll show you how to mount these shims, into the caliper next. All right, correction, the shims do not go on the caliper. They go on the caliper holding bracket, and they just fit like this. And you just you can see these two little clips here. They go into the center there, so just push them down and in like so, and they'll clip right in. And we'll do the same on the top part here, just like that. And I'm going to lubricate this area here on the shims on both sides, and I'm going to be real careful not to get any of the lubrication on the actual rotor, and don't go too heavy on the lubrication here, because it will just fly off and maybe hit the rotor, and once that happens, you contaminate your rotor and your brakes or your brake pads, and you don't want to do that. So I'm just going to use my Permatex again. This stuff, beautiful silicone ceramic extreme, 3,000 Fahrenheit. Again, cannot stress enough to use either this brake part lubricant or something that's similar, but the Permatex is the best. So I think, anyways, I'm going with that, and I'm going to put some here, 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 and here, and then we're going to mount the brake pads and then the caliper. All right, got those shims lubricated up. Next, we've got to put the brake pads on. What I do with the brake pads is I take the back clip off, and I put some lubricant here and some lubricant on the back here. This is the one with the wear squeaker or squealer. This is this tang on here that hits the rotor and tells you that the actual brake pad needs to be replaced. We're pretty close there. I'm going to replace them soon. But what I'm going to do is I took this clip off the back, and I usually put some lubricant here on the back of the brake pad. Then we put the clip back on, and then I put some lubricant here where you can see the piston makes contact with it as well. So all back here. So I'm going to do that next, and then we're going to put them on here. So I've lubricated the front and back of that plate. So I've lubricated the front and back of that plate on the back and front brake pad, keeping any of that grease from getting on the front of the pad. You want to keep that clean. And the back pad has this tang on it for the wear indicator, or wear squeaker, as I would call it. It goes on the back. Careful not to put any of this grease on the rotor or the pad itself, which is a bit of a trick. So let's just put the back one on, and then we'll put the front. There's the back one, and now we do the front one. And the reason you're putting that grease on is to eliminate the chances of any kind of brake squeal. Lubrication stops that, so you want to do that. Personally find squeaky brakes to be annoying, so I don't want that to happen. There we go. A wipe there. Again, check, make sure you didn't get any on the rotor or the pads. I think I didn't. So next, we're going to put the caliper on there, and it's going to be torqued to specification. So basically, at this point, we're just going to fit it on there. But prior to doing that, we have to put some lubrication on the sliders. So we're going to do that, lubricate those, and put the boots on. And you see this. Okay, so there's the sliders, or the pins, the slider pins, and the boots go on in a specific way. You see these little knurls on them. They go to the ends, and the other side goes to the caliper itself. And lubricate these, quite liberally. Again, be careful with the rotor and the pads not to get any in that. So we're going to do that. And I did clean them. Those are not new, they're just cleaned. And the anti-seize compound that they use on there, whoever used on there, they only used it on this side, they didn't use it on the other side. And it was on there like paint. Once it dries, it's like paint. So actually, the good thing about the anti-seize is it kept the corrosion down to a minimum. The other side, they just used, I think, regular grease, and it was more corroded. So, but it was easier to clean. There we go. So yeah, as you can see liberally, I'm going to do the same with the second one. I'm not going to show you that. They're both the same. So put the boot on, slide it into the pocket like so, and then squeeze it all the way in so that the boot seals on the caliper itself. Wipe any excess off, and rinse and repeat on the bottom. As you can see, nice and free, as it should be, just like that. So that's ready to go. I'm going to do the bottom one, and these have a flat edge here. Just make sure that they go in this direction, because you have to mate up with the surface on the actual caliper itself. So this way, the flat edge going this way. So let's do the second one. I've wiped the excess lubrication off there. Give them a spin around the sliders so that you can see that it is actually sealed all the way around the actual mating surface on both the caliper and the pin on the top. Here we are on this one as well. Let's see. We got good, very good seal there. Again, the flat surfaces in that direction, so I'll just put them that way. Next, we'll put the caliper on. Fully compressed at this point. You can see here, it's fully compressed. So we'll put it on like so. And there's lots of space here because these pads are worn. So there's, you know, about ½ an inch of space there. I'm buying new pads. They're on their way. I just probably replace them this week. And I'll make a video on that as well, because I'll show you how I bleed with a vacuum system that doesn't use an air compressor on the next one. So I'm putting the 14 millimeter bolt on the bottom there, just loose. And again on the top. And I'll torque these down to the proper specification. And the proper specification for these are 16 to 24 foot-pounds. So you, and that's, it doesn't specify the year, so that's for all of them. 16 to 24 means the middle would be 20, so I'll probably go for 21 on this. And they are 14 millimeter bolts, so let's snug them down. And you can see that flat piece is resting against the caliper right there. And it just locks in. And again, I'm just doing these snug and then torquing them down to the proper specified torque, which in this case for me is 21. You can go up to 24 if you wish, or down to 16 if you wish, but no less and no more. I like being more or less in the middle and a little bit more. There we go. And you can see how nice and free that caliper is, right? That's the way it should be. At this point, you've basically seen how to change the pads, disc brake pads on the rear of the car. But, you know, again, my point was to show you these painted. And you should bleed the system if, you know, of course, we still have to put the banjo hydraulic flex line into this thing. So not quite finished yet. We'll do that next. But let's torque these down to the proper specification. There we go. I like to give it a few shots. And because I'm going to 21, I can go over because it's up to 24. So there we go. Next, the banjo joint. I'm going to put the pan underneath, and then we'll torque it down to the proper specification as well. All right, got my pan underneath there. Take the flex line out and then remove the hose. And again, as I said before, this system will need to be bled. I will make a second video on bleeding the brakes. I have one already, so I'll put a card up here somewhere for the first one. But my first video on bleeding the brakes on this vehicle, actually uses a compressor, an air compressor, and I know not everybody has one, but I have another way of doing it using a vacuum system pump that you use by hand. Works great. Actually, I prefer it over the other system actually now, and I'll make a video on that as well. But yeah, and if you know how to bleed brakes, it's pretty well the same procedure on all cars. So well, I shouldn't say that, on most cars. So let's take the hose off. Let's take this bolt off and put it on. And don't forget that there's copper washers on these banjo joint to seal it. So we'll take the bolt off, put the copper washers in there properly, and then go. And there's no fluid inside the caliper, so when you do this, you're going to have to put more fluid into the reservoir. So here's our copper seals, sorry, copper washers, and they're on the outside, and then I'll put the other one on the inside when we're ready. So we'll pull the, and again, try and keep the brake fluid off the caliper or anything that has paint. And it may just start leaking out of here when I pull this tube off, more than likely. And then try and avoid hitting, so here we are, trying to avoid hitting the new paint on your nice new calipers with that. So there, put the bolt through with the washer on the back, the copper washer on the back. I'm not getting any fluid coming out of there. Put the copper washer on the front, and you'll see there's two little notches on the back of that caliper where that banjo connection actually fits into. You'll see it, and before you take it off, maybe have a good look at it too. And again, I'm just tightening it by hand until I get there. And I believe that is a 12 millimeter. So once I get that snug, we'll torque it down to specification. There's snug. And again, the procedure for the other side is the exact same, so I don't need to show you that. And of course, you will need to bleed the brake system after this. So get that in there. 21 is where we're going. And I like to click it till it stops moving. 24 is the max, so that gives you a bit of play on that. Okay, that's it. It's sealed. So now you would bleed the system by using the bleeder nipple and the bleeding tools of your choice, and do the other side exactly the same way, which is what I'm going to do next. And after I'm done, I'll show you what it all looks like. Well, there it is, all shiny and red. We've got it bled and mounted and ready to go. I just got to put the wheel back on, so we'll do that. And the torque values for the lug nuts are 79.5 foot-pounds. So just so you know, that's what they should go down to. All right. And the procedure for putting them on is exactly the opposite of taking them off. So hand tighten for sure. That way you know you're not going to cross thread these things. And trust me, I've already replaced one wheel stud and didn't enjoy the process. I've never over torqued them, so again, I'm not the only owner of this vehicle. I'm probably the third or fourth, but regardless, I did fix it. And like I said, you want to avoid that. So there they are, all finger tight to that point. I'll snug them on with my trusty driver. Now you want to make sure that it's snug to the actual hub, and it is. So, and I'm going across in a cross pattern, right? I'm not doing the final torque with this because it will probably over torque it anyway. I want the 79.5 exactly. So now it's snug, it's ready to go. We can drop it off the jack stands, and that's the reverse procedure that I showed in jacking it up. So I'm not going to show you that again. And then of course we've got to do this on the other side as well. So I'm just going to drop it down, and I'm going to snug it down to 79.5 foot-pounds. I'll show you that. And then I'll take it out and you can see how nice this caliper looks, all painted red in the sunlight. Wheels back down on solid ground, so is the vehicle. Still in park. And yeah, just tighten it up to 79.5. So I set my torque wrench to that. And yeah, we'll do the same pattern in a crisscross fashion. There we go. I like to check them. This is the wheel, you don't want it coming off. Okay, they're all good and tight. Do the same on the other side and you're ready to go. I'll take it out into the sunshine so you can see what it looks like in the daylight. I tried to video this out in the driveway and I don't know if it was the heat or the exposure or the sunlight, but you can see how hot it is here. It's Texas, it's midsummer, and yeah, it gets pretty warm. So I couldn't get a good shot on video, so I took a couple of pictures. Here's what it looks like in the shade. And again, I wasn't getting great exposure. The front and the back again. Actually looks much better to the eye than what I could get on the camera. And the sun wasn't low enough to really shine into the wheel wells. So, you know, this is the best I could get out in the sun. But again, very, very bright day, very hot day. So maybe that was having an effect on the camera. So I took it and moved it inside to the garage and took the last few shots here so you could see what it looks like lit up directly and looking real nice in these pictures. I'm very impressed with this job and very happy with this job. So I can certainly recommend this to anybody to do if they want to make them look better. That's it for my video on painting the rear calipers on a Hyundai Santa Fe 2003 red. Actually, this applies to 2001 models to 2006. So if you have one of those, you can follow this video and have the same result that I got on this video on your Santa Fe. If you like this video and it helped you out in some way, do me a huge favor. Click on the like button in the bottom corner down here and give me a big thumbs up. That helps my channel, that helps my video, and I greatly appreciate it. In the video description below, you'll see all the links to all the hardware that I used and supplies that I used in this video. Those are affiliate links, and what that means is if you use those links, you're actually supporting my channel, my efforts here on YouTube, and it doesn't cost you any extra than going to eBay or Amazon directly. So do me a huge favor and use those links. Now the bonus about using those links is that you get the same supplies and the same hardware from the same sellers that I got them from. That basically guarantees that you get the same stuff that you saw in this video. So yeah, do me a favor and use those links. At the end of this video, you'll see a picture of me. That picture is a subscription link. If you click on that picture, you'll be subscribed to my channel. As part of the process of subscribing to my channel, you'll see a bell icon. If you click on the bell icon, you'll be notified every time I put up a new video, and then you can watch it at your own leisure. Once again, and like always, I want to thank you for watching and supporting my efforts here on YouTube. I want you to stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy.